At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in Healthcare Informatics, Digital Marketing and Analytics, Business Analytics, or Financial Analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And welcome to the Stone Zone again. I am Jake Novak filling in again for Roger Stone. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, at about 30 minutes or so, a little bit more than that after the hour, I'm going to tell you about the double standards that Zohran Mamdani gets to enjoy. Not compared to Republicans. Oh, heaven forbid. Of course he gets a double standard compared to them. But compared to even other Democrats, they give him an easier time. So I want to get to that. But first, let me get you some of the latest news in Operation Epic Fury. I got to tell you, if you're watching the mainstream news media, you are seeing all doom and gloom. And they're pulling out some of the doom stories out of their you-know-whats. I just saw in the corner of my eye, CNN at the top of the hour, leading with the fact that some building in southern Iraq was damaged and it was owned partially by Halliburton. That's your lead story? It's not the lead story. I mean, I know some of the producers of Anderson Cooper's show, okay? I'm not going to say their names, but come on, guys. You know better than that. You go with what's the biggest thing going on right now and hopefully the closest thing to actually happening at the moment. I'm going to give you that right now. Right now, Marabad Airport in Iran looks like the apocalypse. It's getting bombed to like nothing. It is absolutely being hit really hard. And it's not just because it's an airport. It's because we have known for a long time, both the United States and Israel, that there are Iranian military facilities underneath that airport. Also, by the way, they have some prisons underneath there, too. So maybe they're trying to break out whoever's left in there. That's what's happening right at this moment. I wouldn't say it's the biggest story of the day, but you got to leave with what's happening at the moment, and that's very dramatic. Some building in South Iraq, somewhat damaged, that's owned by Halliburton. That's your lead, CNN? That's your lead, Anderson Cooper? They're looking so hard to find doom and gloom bad news, which you can always find in a war if that's what you want to do, that they are absolutely underserving their audience. Are people paying for a cable subscription to CNN or for stream? But don't. Get your money back. All right, let me get you some of the other big stories of the day. I think the big enduring story of the day is President Trump calling for the unconditional surrender of the Iranian regime. That's a very big deal. We've had so many wars in the past where we haven't exactly called for that. Really, the last time I can remember a war that the United States was involved in where we absolutely demanded unconditional surrender was World War II. We demanded unconditional surrender from Nazi Germany and from Imperial Japan. In Nazi Germany, by the way, a guy named Admiral Donitz tried to do a modified surrender. Basically said, I'll get rid of the Hitler folks, and maybe you let me continue to rule this country. And no dice. We didn't take no deal on that one. Admiral Donitz. Japan asked for unconditional surrender after the second atomic bomb fell on Nagasaki. We've stopped short in a lot of our wars ever since, and sometimes I think it made sense to do that, sometimes it didn't. But that is a very big news that President Trump's calling for that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he called for it after Israel blew up the underground bunker that was used by the now late Ali Khamenei, the Ayatollah there, and all of his top leaders. And we're hearing reports that maybe the rest of what was left of that top leadership in Iran was taken out in that attack. So maybe President Trump made that demand for unconditional surrender because he kind of knew all the leaders who might have the ability to continue fighting a war and authorizing it were gone. Possibly. There are reports, by the way, again, this is the second time he's been reported dead in the last week, so I don't want everybody to get completely convinced of this. But yet another report that the son of Ali Khamenei, Mojtaba Khamenei, who was named the new supreme leader earlier in the day, may have been killed in that strike, in that bunker strike that the Israelis carried out. Maybe, maybe not. Again, we'll find out. Wouldn't be surprised if he's dead. Wouldn't be surprised if he isn't. But that's a big story today, in addition to the unconditional surrender and that huge bunker getting attacked. Okay, another big enduring story of the day, according to the Washington Post and some other sources. Russia is giving Iran intelligence about where the American soldiers are. Not so much soldiers because they don't really have boots on the ground, but, you know, our jets, where our ships are. I don't know how much of a big breaking story this is. We know that Iran and Russia have been in cahoots militarily for a long time. Russia likes to cause problems. They don't really care about solutions. They just like to cause problems. And of course, the bottom line on this story is, so what? It doesn't matter if Iran knows where our ships are and where our jets are. They can't hit them. They're not even trying to hit them. It doesn't take Russia off the hook for what they're doing. But I mean, come on, folks, let's get a little bit real here. But Russia does like to cause mayhem in the Middle East, and that reminds me of a joke that I have to share with you folks here on the Stone Zone. I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone. Great joke, and it's still true, about how when the Soviets used to train Egypt and Syrian Air Force pilots when they were fighting wars against Israel in the 60s and 70s, the old joke is they would train them how to fly the MiG jets. And after a couple of weeks, they would leave. And the Syrians and the Egyptians would say, wait a minute, you can't leave. You taught us how to fly these jets, but you didn't teach us how to land. And the Soviets said, don't worry, the Israelis will teach you how to land. Which is exactly what happened. That's kind of what's going on right here. They'll tell the Iranians where the U.S. ships are, maybe, if they know, and the jets are. And the Iranians say, well, wait a minute, give us the weapons to fire at them. No, not going to give you that. Not going to happen. They just kind of want to cause problems. Now, here on American soil, I think one of the biggest stories is the fact that we actually haven't seen too many scenes like this. But I'm very excited because this is probably going to be the first U.S. national program that's going to, at least give you some of the sound of what's going on right now, or just ended down in Washington Square Park, not far from the studio where I'm doing this program for you right now. There was an actual vigil for the Ayatollah Khamenei and a support the Iranian regime event. I'm happy to say there was a heavy counter-protest there, but I want to give you some sound from some of the people that were there, giving our very intrepid reporter, and this is his real name, Nino Danino, was there to get some sound. Here's how he was treated when he got there.
Can you leave? Like, what are you doing here? You're clearly not here to fight. All you're doing is
Don't touch me, don't push me.
I'm not touching you. All you're doing is coming in here and being a problem.
I'm not even talking, I'm literally just recording. It's my job. This is my full-time job.
15 videos of that.
It's my full-time job to record.
You have gotten 15 videos.
I have to stream this whole thing. That's what I'm doing.
That's a stupid job. You've literally gotten 15 videos over there. You've gotten footage. Seen you get your footage. Trust.
Ask them if I was just streaming. I'm a digital reporter in the city. I don't know what to tell you guys. It's my job.
All you come in here is and push people around and try to get your footage. You've gotten 15 videos.
Why aren't you harassing any other reporter that's here?
Because you're the one making a problem.
But I haven't. This is my first time that I've spoken to anybody at this whole event. So.
That's untrue.
Who did I speak to? I told you to stop pushing me before.
No, because I literally wasn't pushing you.
Yeah, you walked into me a dozen times.
You came in here.
Leave me alone. I'm allowed to.
Whatever, I'm not going to argue with you. Everyone who's here just trying to cause a problem.
This is such an interesting trend that we see, not just in live incidents like this, but also online. You see a lot, where you see this mostly happening, where people decide to make controversial statements, posts and things like that, and then they're angry and they put it on a public social media platform. And then people like libs of TikTok, all they do is quote you and they say, hey, this is something you posted. You put it out there in public. I'm not stealing it or hacking it from your private files. And then people get upset. And that's what was happening here. These people were at a very public event. By the way, you can't see the video, but all the people who were interacting with our reporter were all wearing masks. They, absolute cowards. They weren't breaking the law. I don't know why they need to have masks other than maybe they want to get nice jobs. Washington Square Park, of course, is unofficially part of the NYU, New York University campus. So there probably were some NYU students. Maybe they're worried about not getting a job after graduation, which does happen to some of these people. In that case, if you don't feel strongly enough about a war that you're not willing to sacrifice your job prospects, then don't go. Be a coward. Don't wear a mask. But anyway, this reminds me of, if you remember the protests at the University of Missouri after the whole Michael Brown situation in Ferguson, Missouri, where students were protesting what was happening, and they got angry at the news media for covering a public protest on public property. And a couple of the news media people came in just to film it, and some professor got really angry that they were actually filming the protest, And she was famously caught on air saying, "Can I get some muscle over here?" Muscle what? To beat up the reporters? I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, this is just incredible. This is just incredible. These people, they're probably going and telling all their friends how courageous they were that they went to this vigil in support for the Iranian regime in the Washington Square Park and how much they hate America and hate Israel and all that kind of stuff. But they're not willing to show their faces. And when somebody comes to cover it as a news event, which usually you kind of want, right? If you're trying to make a protest, don't you want it covered in the news media? I mean, these people are absolutely incredible in their cowardice and in their mixed messaging. And they're trying to harass a reporter who was just there filming it on his phone and and using a professional microphone so that you in the national audience can see the story and hear the story and find out what's going on. What's wrong with that? I mean, this is really, it's almost like the latest example of something that I always say, which is that there's no such thing as a non-religious person. So if you're not a Christian and you're not a Jew, and if you're not, I think, an old school Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever, you'll find something else to be devoted to. I think a lot of people, it's themselves. I think narcissism is a big one. That's number one with the bullet. But number two is politics. Some people really treat their political beliefs like it's a religion. And they're acting like, oh, some news reporter coming into my religious services, which I wouldn't want to happen either. Because for them, this is a religious type of event. It really kind of is. And that's sad. By the way, politics is a bad substitute for religion. It doesn't have the good food and it doesn't have the music. Political songs stink. So, I mean, I'm half joking. But honestly, if you're going to joke, I'm a member of the oldest surviving cult in the world. And I got to tell you, we have good food and we have pretty good music. What can I say? It's a lot of rules to follow, but there you go. All kidding aside, though, that's what's going on in Washington Square Park. I don't think this is something that's happening in large numbers nationally. There were a lot of counter-protesters there. And by the way, this mirrors, although not as great as it was going on in London this week, there were at least two events like this in central London where they tried to have a pro-Iranian regime mourning for Ali Khamenei event. And they were shouted down and very heavily outnumbered by pro-Israel, pro-American demonstrators who not only shouted them down, but started playing the Donald Trump YMCA song and doing the dance. Maybe if they try this again in Washington Square Park, they'll get that again. But I got to say, as outrageous as it is, and there were a lot of people, all joking aside, there were a lot of people who were mentioning the fact that after the 9/11 attacks, Washington Square Park became kind of a standing spot for vigils and mourning events for the victims, because Washington Square Park was it was really like the most iconic park closest to Ground Zero. It's not really that close to Ground Zero. It's obviously quite a hike. And if it were too close to Ground Zero, it wouldn't have been safe to be there. But, so a lot of people are saying this is kind of like sacred ground, Washington Square Park, for victims of Islamist fascism and Islamo-Nazism and terrorism. But honestly, you can see why people feel this way. Folks, got a lot more to get to here on the Stone Zone. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. At about 35 minutes after the hour, I'm going to tell you the results of a very surprising midterm poll. But when we come back, I'm going to tell you about that double standard for Zohran Mamdani. He gets treated better than other Democrats, let alone Republicans. You're listening to the Stone Zone. I'll be right back.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.